The jungle was alive with whispers. Ethan Cole had been in alien ruins before, he had crawled through tombs and read glyphs that hadn't been touched in 1,000 years, but this place breathed. The canopy above him stretched so high it drowned out the stars, and the vines coiled down like watchful serpents. His lantern barely carved out a circle of light, and beyond it the shadows seemed to move on their own. He kept telling himself it was just animals. Just the jungle. But deep down, he wasn't so sure. That was when he heard it. A sound unlike anything he had heard on any expedition before. Faint at first. A thump. Then another. Like the heartbeat of the forest itself. Low, steady, and growing louder with every passing breath. Drums. He froze, one hand tightening around the strap of his pack. Out here, on a planet catalogued as uninhabited, the last thing he expected to hear was music. But it wasn't joyous. It was heavy, ritualistic, echoing between the massive roots and pillars of moss-draped stone. Ethan hesitated. His training told him to mark the location, return to camp, and alert the others. But curiosity, it was his curse. Curiosity was what had dragged him across half the galaxy to dig up the bones of civilizations long gone. And now, that same hunger for answers pulled his feet toward the sound. He pushed through thick ferns, his boots sinking into damp soil. The deeper he went, the stronger the rhythm grew, until it seemed to pulse through his chest. He killed his lantern and let the moonlight guide him, every step measured, careful. The air grew hot, thick with the smell of smoke. His stomach tightened as he realized this wasn't some harmless festival. From the ridge, he saw them. The clearing below was lit by fire. Dozens, no, hundreds, of figures gathered around a towering wooden pyre. Their bodies were painted with streaks of ash and glowing sap, their faces hidden behind masks carved from bone and shell. They swayed in unison, raising their arms as the drums boomed louder and faster. And at the center of it all, bound to the pyre with woven ropes, was a girl. Not human. Her skin shimmered faintly under the firelight, like moonstone kissed by water. Her hair fell in silver waves, catching the flames as though each strand carried its own light. But it was her eyes that caught Ethan even from a distance, large, luminous, and filled with terror. She struggled against the ropes, her lips moving as though she were speaking, though no sound reached him. The tribe around her chanted, voices blending with the drums until it sounded less like a song and more like a sentence. Ethan's pulse quickened. He should leave. He should back away, mark the coordinates, and report. But something inside him refused to move. Watching her there, helpless, surrounded by a mob hungry for her death, it clawed at something raw inside him. When the masked leader stepped forward holding a torch, Ethan knew he couldn't stand by. He slid down from the ridge, keeping low, heart pounding in his ears louder than the drums. The crowd's attention was fixed on the pyre, their chanting rising higher. He crept behind the ring of masked figures, weaving between shadows, until he was at the edge of the clearing. The firelight licked at his face, and sweat slicked his palms. The leader raised the torch, his chant booming above the rest. The girl's eyes widened, reflecting the flames, and she shook her head violently. Ethan didn't think. He moved. He broke from the shadows, lunging toward the pyre. The crowd gasped, the drums faltered for a beat. Ethan ripped a blade from his belt and slashed at the ropes binding her wrists. The fibers snapped, and the girl fell forward into his arms, her body trembling but alive. For an instant, the world froze. The fire crackled. The girl's glowing eyes locked onto his. And then chaos erupted. The tribe roared, a tidal wave of fury. The leader hurled the torch toward Ethan, and flames burst across the ground. Masked figures surged in, grabbing for him, but adrenaline carried him through. He shoved one aside, dragged the girl off the pyre, and bolted for the tree line. They ran. Branches whipped against his face, roots clawed at his boots, but he didn't stop. Behind them, the drums thundered again, this time frantic, a call to hunt. The girl stumbled, and Ethan caught her by the arm. "Keep moving," he shouted, though he wasn't sure she could understand. But her luminous eyes flashed, and somehow, through that gaze, he felt her answer, not in words, but in raw determination. Together, they plunged into the heart of the alien jungle, the night alive with pursuit. Ethan didn't know who she was. He didn't know why they wanted her dead. All he knew was that he had crossed a line he could never step back from. And whatever secrets this girl carried, whatever fate had tied them together in this strange and dangerous world, it had only just begun. They didn't stop running until the drums faded into the distance, replaced only by the rasp of Ethan's breath and the hum of nocturnal creatures hiding in the leaves. His lungs burned, and his legs begged him to collapse, but the thought of pursuit kept him moving. The girl, though fragile in appearance, kept pace beside him with surprising endurance. Finally, when the forest grew too thick to push through without light, Ethan pulled her behind a massive root arching like a natural bridge. They sank into the damp earth, chests heaving. For a long moment, silence. Only the alien night spoke, whistles of unseen insects, the croak of amphibians, the low rumble of some predator far away. Ethan pressed his back to the root, wiping sweat from his brow. He should have been terrified, overwhelmed, regretting every step that brought him here. But instead, his eyes kept returning to her. Her wrists bore red marks from the ropes. Her silver hair clung to her face, strands glowing faintly in the moonlight. And those eyes, they were unlike anything he had seen on any world. Deep, luminous pools that seemed to search through him, not at him. She tilted her head, lips parting as if to speak, but no sound came. Then Ethan felt something strange, a pressure in his skull, gentle, probing, like fingers brushing against a locked door. He stiffened. "Are you?" His voice trailed off. He knew the stories. Ancient reports of species with abilities beyond human senses. But none had ever been proven. And then, clear as if spoken aloud, he heard her. "You saved me." Ethan's breath caught. He glanced around, but her lips hadn't moved. She was staring directly into his eyes, and he realized the voice was inside his head. "You can talk," he whispered, though the word talk seemed wrong. She closed her eyes, and again the voice came, softer this time. "My name is Serena." He almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. Here he was, half lost in an alien jungle, having just rescued a girl from being burned alive by a masked tribe, and now she was speaking to him without words. "Serena," he repeated, as if grounding the name in reality. "I'm Ethan." Her gaze softened, but then shifted with urgency. She gripped his arm and shook her head, and once again, he felt her thoughts press against his. "They will not stop. You don't understand. By saving me, you have doomed yourself." Ethan swallowed. "Then explain it to me. Who were they? Why were they?" He couldn't even finish. The image of her tied to the pyre still burned in his mind. She lowered her head, her voice brushing his thoughts like a whisper carried on wind. "They were my people." Ethan stared. "Your people? They were going to kill you." Her hands trembled in her lap. "I am the last daughter of the Lyrians. A bloodline that should have ended long ago. My kind, we can reach into the minds of others. We can share, guide, even, control. Once, long before your species walked the stars, we ruled through that gift. But it made us feared. Hated. Hunted." She paused, the glow of her eyes dimming with sorrow. "The tribe you saw tonight, they are descendants of those who betrayed us. They believe my blood carries a curse. To burn me was to free themselves." Ethan sat back, mind spinning. An entire species, telepathic, now reduced to a single heir. And he had just stolen her from the fire that was supposed to erase that legacy forever. "And now," he asked quietly. "What happens to you?" Her gaze lifted, steady, unwavering. Now, I must survive. Even if survival means war. Before Ethan could respond, a rustle came from the undergrowth. He tensed, pulling his blade. Serena grabbed his wrist, shaking her head. Not them, she whispered in his mind. Something else. The bushes parted, and a figure stepped into the pale light. It was tall, easily 7 feet, with skin mottled like stone and eyes burning a faint amber. Armor made of woven bark and bone clung to its chest, and in its hand was a spear tipped with crystalline metal. Ethan raised his blade, but Serena moved in front of him. The newcomer tilted its head, eyes narrowing. Then, in a guttural but clear voice, it spoke. The human metals where he should not. Ethan froze. This one spoke aloud. Serena's voice flickered in his mind. Do not attack. He is Kale. An exile, like me. Kale stepped closer, the ground trembling under his weight. He studied Ethan with the disdain of a predator assessing prey. You saved her. Foolish. You do not know what storm you've unleashed. I'm starting to get that, Ethan muttered, lowering his blade slightly but not relaxing. Kale's amber eyes turned to Serena. They will come for you. For both of you now. And when they do, no jungle, no ruin, no god will protect you. Serena's thoughts brushed Ethan's mind again, urgent. We must move. Farther north. To the ruins of my people. There, I can show you the truth. Ethan looked between them, the telepathic girl glowing like moonlight, and the towering exile who radiated both strength and warning. He knew he could walk away. Leave them, return to camp, and pretend none of this had ever happened. But he also knew he wouldn't. He tightened his grip on his pack and nodded. Then let's go. The three of them vanished into the jungle night, the drums of the tribe faint but still echoing in the distance. And with every step, Ethan felt the weight of something larger pressing in, a sense that he hadn't just saved a girl. He had awakened a history buried too long, and whatever came next would change more than just their lives. The jungle stretched endlessly, a cathedral of roots and shadows. Ethan had lost all sense of direction hours ago, but Serena moved with certainty, as though invisible paths opened before her feet. Kale followed in silence, his heavy strides crushing foliage, his amber eyes always scanning the trees. Ethan couldn't tell if Kale was protector, jailer, or executioner, but the way he gripped his spear suggested he expected trouble at every turn. As dawn crept over the canopy, a strange hum began to rise. At first Ethan thought it was insects, but the pitch was too steady, too deliberate, like a chorus beneath the earth. The sound grew stronger as they climbed a ridge, and then the trees opened. The ruins lay before them. Great stone towers cracked by roots, their surfaces etched with glyphs that shimmered faintly as though touched by starlight. Bridges of crumbled crystal arched between platforms suspended over chasms of black. It was magnificent and haunting, like walking into the ribcage of a fallen god. Serena paused at the edge, her silver hair stirring in the morning breeze. Her eyes glowed brighter here, almost painfully so. She turned to Ethan, and without words, he felt her thought brush against his. This was Lyrian ground. The heart of what we were. And what we lost. They descended into the ruins. Ethan's archaeologist's instincts awoke, pulling his attention to the glyphs. He traced a hand over one, the stone warm beneath his fingertips. The symbols weren't just carved, they were alive, pulsing faintly in rhythm with the hum. What is this? He whispered. Serena stood beside him, her hand hovering just over the stone. Memory. My people wove thought into the walls themselves. Every line carries a piece of us. And then Ethan felt it. Like a floodgate opening, images crashed into his mind, Lyrian cities glowing with crystal towers, voices layered in harmony, minds linked in perfect unity. But the vision soured quickly. Fire. Chains. Screams swallowed by silence as invaders tore through their world. He staggered back, clutching his head. God! Serena steadied him, her small hand against his arm. Her eyes were mournful, heavy with centuries of loss. That was our gift. We lived as one mind. But unity is power. And power breeds fear. Kale's voice rumbled from behind them. Fear destroyed you. Fear always destroys. Serena's gaze sharpened, a spark of defiance lighting within her. Fear does not end us, Kale. Not if I live. Ethan studied her. Fragile, trembling, yet standing tall among the ruins of a fallen empire. In that moment he understood why the tribe wanted her gone. She wasn't just a girl, she was a torch still burning in the dark, proof that Lyrians weren't finished. As they pressed deeper, Serena led them to a chamber half buried under stone. Inside, the air was thick with the hum of memory. At the center stood an altar of crystal, cracked but still glowing faintly. Serena approached, and the glow in her eyes blazed until the whole chamber pulsed with light. Ethan shielded his face, but through the brilliance he saw her hands hover above the altar. The glow poured into her, flooding her veins with light. She trembled, and then, suddenly, Ethan's mind was not his own. He was standing in two worlds. In the ruins with his body, but also in a vast open plain of stars. Serena stood there too, her silver hair whipping in a wind that wasn't real, her voice carrying across the cosmos. This is our true gift, she said. The Lyrian bond. With it, I can share with you not only thoughts, but feelings. Memories. Truth. Ethan felt her, really felt her. The fear that had haunted her since childhood, the loneliness of being the last of her kind, the weight of an entire history pressed on fragile shoulders. But also, he felt warmth. Gratitude. A flicker of trust aimed at him, fragile but real. His chest tightened. He hadn't meant to feel anything more than duty, but here, in the echo of her soul, he couldn't deny the pull. The vision cracked as Serena gasped and stumbled. Ethan caught her, pulling her against him. The glow dimmed, leaving only faint sparks in her veins. Kale's growl echoed through the chamber. You've shown him too much. He is human. He cannot bear the weight of it. Serena shook her head weakly. He saved me. He must know why. Before Ethan could answer, a sound split the air. Not drums this time, but horns. Distant, but closing fast. Kale cursed under his breath, spear at the ready. They've tracked us. Ethan's heart hammered. The tribe? Kale shook his head grimly. Worse. Hunters. They serve the old order, the ones who swore no Lyrian blood would ever walk free again. As if to prove his words, shadows began to flicker through the broken arches above. Figures moved with predatory grace, armor glinting faintly in the gloom. Their eyes shone like embers, and each carried weapons forged of crystal and bone. Serena's voice pressed urgently into Ethan's mind. We cannot fight them all. We must reach the inner sanctum. There lies the Heartstone, our last refuge. If I touch it, I can awaken what remains of my people. Ethan glanced at Kale. The alien warrior's jaw tightened, but he nodded. Then we hold them off long enough. The hunters dropped from the arches, surrounding them. Ethan drew his blade. His pulse roared in his ears. He wasn't a soldier, he was an archaeologist, but for Serena, for this strange glowing girl whose soul had brushed against his, he would stand. The ruins groaned, the hum rising, as though the stones themselves knew what was coming. And as the first hunter lunged, the war for Serena's survival truly began. The first hunter struck like lightning, a blur of bone and crystal blades. Ethan barely raised his knife in time, the clash sending shockwaves up his arm. He stumbled back, heart racing, as Kale roared and swung his spear, impaling another hunter clean through the chest. The chamber exploded into chaos. The hum of the ruins became a thunderous chorus, every glyph flaring as if awakened by the violence. Hunters poured in from the arches, their movements fluid, merciless. Ethan slashed wildly, surviving more on instinct than skill. Serena stood near the altar, her hands trembling as light began to surge from the crystal. Her voice pressed urgently into Ethan's mind. Hold them back. I need time. Time. That was the one thing they didn't have. Kale fought like a beast, his spear spinning arcs of death. But for every hunter that fell, 2 more replaced him. Ethan's arms ached, sweat blinding his eyes, but he forced himself to stay between Serena and the enemy. He wasn't a soldier, but desperation forged him into one. A hunter broke past him, lunging at Serena. Ethan threw himself forward, tackling it to the ground. The creature's blade scraped his side, searing hot pain through his ribs, but he drove his knife into its throat before it could reach her. Blood slicked his hands, his vision swam, but Serena's touch steadied him. Light spilled from her fingers, knitting his wound just enough to keep him standing. Don't fall, she whispered in his head. I need you. Something surged inside Ethan at those words, something greater than fear. He staggered to his feet, knife ready again. The hunters closed in. Kale bellowed, fighting like a wall of stone, but even he faltered under the relentless assault. Then the altar cracked. A beam of pure light burst upward, striking the ceiling and splitting stone. The glyphs on the walls flared, each one blazing like a star. Serena stood at the heart of it, her body consumed by brilliance, her eyes twin suns. The hunters froze, their movements faltering, their snarls breaking into cries of pain as the light seared them. Serena's voice echoed through every mind in the chamber, not a whisper now, but a storm. Enough. The hunters clutched their heads, staggering as if crushed beneath invisible weight. One by one, they dropped their blades, some fleeing, others collapsing in convulsions. The ruins themselves seemed to pulse with her command, every stone vibrating with the weight of her will. Ethan shielded his eyes, but through the glare he saw her standing tall, her silver hair fanned like a halo, her presence filling the chamber. She was no longer just Serena, the girl he had untied from the pyre. She was the last Lyrian, heir to a power that could shatter minds and bend armies. And then the light dimmed. Serena fell to her knees, trembling, smoke curling from the cracks in the altar. Ethan rushed to her side, catching her before she collapsed entirely. Her glow flickered faintly in her veins, but her eyes were still alive, still burning. Kale staggered forward, blood streaking his stone-like skin. He planted his spear into the ground to stay upright, his gaze locked on Serena. You've awakened the Heartstone, he rasped. Do you realize what that means? Serena's voice whispered weakly in Ethan's mind. It means my people are not gone. Their echoes still live here. And with me, they rise again. Ethan swallowed hard. He could feel it too, the ruins humming louder, not just with memory, but with presence. As though thousands of voices stirred beneath the surface, waiting, watching. Kale's amber eyes darkened. This will not end with one battle. The tribes will come. The hunters will come. And now the humans will come too. They will not allow a Lyrian queen to live. Ethan met his gaze, then looked back at Serena. She was fragile, trembling, but within her lay the spark of an entire lost people. He realized the truth then, saving her hadn't doomed him. It had chosen him. He squeezed her hand, his voice steady. Then let them come. We'll stand together. Serena's eyes softened, and for a moment her thoughts brushed his with warmth, not command. You would stay. Even knowing the war this will bring. Ethan nodded without hesitation. I didn't come across half the galaxy just to watch history die. I came to protect it. To protect you. Her lips curved in the faintest smile, though her voice in his mind trembled with emotion. Then you are no longer just human to me, Ethan Cole. You are Lyrian now. Bound to me. The word struck deeper than any wound. He felt the bond settle between them, not just thought and memory, but something more, an unbreakable thread that tied his soul to hers. Cale exhaled heavily, his massive shoulders sagging. So be it. The storm has begun. May you be strong enough to weather it. Above them, the ruins groaned as shafts of light pierced the broken ceiling. The jungle beyond was silent, as if holding its breath. The hunters had fled, but Ethan knew this was only the beginning. War was on the horizon, between tribes, hunters, and even humans who would see Serena as threat rather than miracle. But as he looked down at her, resting against him, her eyes glowing faintly with trust, he felt no fear. He had heard the drums in the night. He had seen the fire meant to consume her. And he had chosen to save her anyway. Now, with the bond of the last Lyrian burning in his veins, Ethan Cole knew he would face whatever storm came next, not as an archaeologist chasing ruins, but as a man who had found something worth more than all the galaxies combined. He had found her. And for the first time in centuries, hope lived again.